Hey y'all, let's see what the cards have to say about what's going to be happening in America for the rest of the year and what we as citizens can possibly expect. This is going to be a long one. I usually do really deep dives, so let me give you the shortest version first, and if you want to stick around, we're really going to break all of this down. So the quickest way to put it is if you step back from all the symbolism and just look at the story that these cards are telling, it feels a little like the country is standing at a crossroads in the middle of a long stretch of road. A lot of people are really freaking tired. They've heard the same promises and the same arguments for years now, and they are completely just worn down by it. And that's the Four of Cups energy. It's just like people are sitting quietly, unsure if anything new will ever really come along. But at the same time, younger voices are stepping forward with new ideas and a different way of looking at the world. And that's the Page of Wands lighting little fires of change here and there. Along the way, the Five of Cups shows up, trying to tell us that there could be moments where the country feels disappointed in itself or mourns something that's been lost, which could be trust, stability, a sense of shared direction, or even a tragedy. Now, it is clear that certain systems are changing, but the old ones don't let go easily. People cling to what they know, even if it is not working anymore. That's the death reversed energy. It's the struggle between the past and the future. By the time you reach the Star reversed, it can feel like hope itself has gotten a little dim. Some people may not know who to believe anymore or where the country is even headed. But the important thing about the Star, even in this reversed position, is that it's still the star. It's the symbol of healing, and it's still there, even if the light feels faint for a while. We have the free will to flip that card, and I feel that we need to collectively do that. We need to turn that star right side up. History has a way of showing that the years when things feel the most uncertain are often the same years when the layouts of the future are very quietly being laid down. Now, sometimes before a new chapter can begin, a country has to walk through a stretch of road where the old map just doesn't work anymore, and everyone has to figure out the new one together. Okay, so if you want to hear the whole breakdown, let's do this. So, when tarot cards are pulled about an entire country instead of one person's life, the cards often change their meaning. Instead of representing personal feelings, they start to represent collective moods, generational movements, and social cycles. The spread that I pulled, which is the Four of Cups, Page of Wands, Five of Cups, Death reversed, and the Star reversed, tells a story that is usually recognized as the emotional pattern that shows up when societies are moving through turning point years. What kind of blew my mind is that the themes of these cards line up almost perfectly with the major astrological cycles that are shaping the world right now, especially the long-term movements of Pluto, Saturn, and Uranus. When you put the tarot symbolism and the astrology side by side, it shows us a country that is not necessarily collapsing, but it could be going through a difficult change that kind of redefines how people see power, hope, and future. Now, the spread starts off with the Four of Cups, which shows us emotional withdrawal, apathy, and exhaustion. The traditional imagery shows someone sitting under a tree staring at the Three of Cups on the ground while the fourth cup is offered from the clouds. So the other person either does not see that or refuses it. In personal readings, that card often shows up when someone feels burnt out or disconnected from life. But in a national reading like this, it usually shows us a collective mood of fatigue. People might be feeling like they've heard the same arguments over and over and over again, political debates repeating themselves, and promises come and go. After a while, the emotional response becomes numbness. Instead of anger or passion, the feeling turns into a quiet, tiring shrug because we might have the feeling of, well, nothing will change anyway. So, that emotional feeling mirrors something actually happening in the sky right now. Saturn moving through Pisces. Now, Saturn is often called the planet of reality checks, responsibility, and hard lessons. It tends to expose weaknesses in systems and it forces people to deal with consequences, whether they're old ones or new ones. Pisces, on the other hand, rules over emotion, compassion, illusion, and collective psychological states. So when Saturn moves through Pisces, societies often go through periods where illusions start to fade and the truth about emotions bubble up to the top. Things people once believed in, like institutions, leaders, certain stories, they get tested. This can create a widespread feeling that something important has been lost, even if we can't quite put a name to what that is. It's the energy of emotional, total burnout and exhaustion, and it's exactly the tone of the Four of Cups. Also, the opportunity that is being offered, it could be legislation or reform that could help, but it fails to gain attention. There could be solutions that are being overlooked because there's always so much information coming at us at one time that we could miss it, or some people might be disillusioned with it. It's also like saying nothing changes anyway. So the second card, the Page of Wands, it changes the energy of the spread. Pages in tarot show us younger voices, new ideas, and messages that challenge the old order. So the Suit of Wands is the element of fire, which is a symbol for passion, activism, creativity, and bold, loud expression. So when the Page of Wands pops up in readings about society, it implies to me that it's the rise of a new generation that's stepping into the conversation. It shows people who have not accepted the rules that older systems expect for them to follow yet. They might ask different questions, challenge traditions, and or experiment with new ways of organizing communities and sharing information. It's like online activists are trying to find a better way to organize, or that the online activism does spill over into real world organizing. Like, I do feel like that energy seems to be saying that it will work. It shows like a new platform, a media movement, and or a cultural trend that really sparks conversations that we need to have as a country. This energy lines up closely with one of the most important astrological events happening right now, which is Pluto entering Aquarius. Over the past few months, I've been interested in how astrology and tarot interact. And Pluto is the planet of changes, and I am talking about really deep changes. It governs over power structures, truths that are being hidden from us, and cycles of destruction and rebirth. When Pluto moves into a new sign, it tends to actually change society in ways that last for decades. So right now, like, Pluto has moved into Aquarius where it will remain until the 2040s. And Aquarius rules society, technology, collective movements, and revolutionary ideas. So, when Pluto moves through Aquarius, history itself shows us periods of dramatic cultural change. Because the last time Pluto did move through Aquarius, it was during the late 1700s. That was the time period of the American Revolution and the French Revolution. Those were two moments when societies questioned how legit long standing power structures actually were. That doesn't mean revolutions will repeat themselves exactly, but it does mean that this transit tends to stir up generational awakenings, innovative tech that's on the rise, and new forms of social organization. The Page of Wands shows us that same energy. She tells us that there will likely be a moment when someone new steps forward holding a torch and says, like, hey, you know what? Maybe we can do this differently. Next comes the Five of Cups, which is one of the most emotionally heavy cards in tarot. The card shows a cloaked figure mourning over three spilled cups while two cups remain standing behind them. Now, the symbolism speaks a lot to grief, regret, and reflection. It's like the painful realization that something has been lost. So, in national readings, the Five of Cups often appears when a society is collectively mourning something. It might be a tragic event, a major disaster, a violent event that leads to widespread mourning, a crisis of trust, or a moment when people have this awakening, like realizing the world that they thought they understood has changed. This card can also point out a controversial ruling and or a policy decision that deeply divides us or causes a huge upset. The economy has the potential or possibility to crash, and there could be financial losses that affect a lot of people. The important detail in the card is that not everything is destroyed. Those two cups still remain upright. But when grief takes a hold of us, usually I'd say we naturally probably focus on what's gone rather than what is still there. Astrologically, this emotional tone again echoes Saturn and Pisces, which tends to bring times where societies actually confront the hard truths about themselves, and illusions start to dissolve, and things that were hidden finally come to the light. Emotional wounds that were ignored will start demanding attention. This is by far not comfortable energy, but historically it has pushed cultures to think about what truly needs healing. It makes some people even ask questions like, how the hell did we even get here? Then after the grief comes the fourth card, Death Reversed. Now, despite the scary name, the Death card in tarot does not always refer to literal death. It actually can show us something changing or mutating. It's the ending of one phase so another can begin. So when the card appears reversed, it suggests to me that there is resistance to that change. Something is clearly changing, but people are struggling to let the old version of things pass away. There are systems that no longer function properly, but they stay in place because they are so deeply rooted. Traditions hold on even when they've outlived their usefulness. It also shows that there could be major reforms that are blocked or at least very delayed. There can also be a political gridlock. As far as something that will be a long transition, it can mean that there's a problem that everyone sees, but no one really resolves it very quickly. This tension also goes together with another major astrological force, which is Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is the planet of sudden change, rebellion, and disruption. But Taurus, however, governs over stability, resources, agriculture, money, and the physical forms and layouts that make societies feel secure. So when Uranus moves through Taurus, it tends to shake, rattle, and roll the foundations of systems that people thought were stable. I mean, especially financial systems, resource management, and economic structures. This transit has been active since 2018 and will continue through the mid 2020s. Historically, similar times have happened that coincide with economic troubles, technological shifts that affect labor, and people changing their attitudes towards wealth and ownership. That restless, disruptive energy fits perfectly with the Death Reversed card because it's a big change trying to take place while the past just refuses to release its grip. The final card in the spread is the Star Reversed, and the Star is one of the most hopeful cards in the deck. Upright, it represents healing, renewal, and faith in the future after hard times. Reversed, though, that healing process feels very delayed. Like the star reverse often shows up when people experience a crisis of faith, and not necessarily religious faith either, but just people's faith in systems, leaderships, and the idea that the future will ever improve. It can show widespread cynicism, distrust, and emotional exhaustion. But the star reverse does not mean that hope is gone forever. It means that hope has been dimmed or slightly buried, usually because the healing process has not fully started yet. Astrologically, this actually mirrors the emotional testing that's associated with Saturn's time in Pisces. Saturn tends to take away the illusions so that the genuine healing can take place later. In other words, the star reversed often represents the moment before hope is rebuilt. When analyzing spreads about societies, certain patterns appear again and again and again during times of historical transition. Now, one of those patterns involves a sequence that goes a little something like this. First, it's emotional exhaustion. Then it's the emerging of the voices. Then it's the collective grief over something. Then it's the resistance to transformation. And then there's this crisis of hope. Now, this pattern is usually seen as years when societies reach crossroads. Not necessarily completely fall apart in ruins, but times when the direction of the future becomes super uncertain. During these times, people sense that the old way of doing things just no longer works, but the new system has not fully taken shape yet. So the result is tension, confusion, and emotional turbulence. But those same periods will frequently become the moments that historians later describe as the beginning of major cultural shifts. Putting these cards all together, this could be the kind of year where people do realize the next chapter of the U.S. is beginning, whether anyone feels ready or not.